Hello, I'm Catherine Brown Ramsperger, author of the award-winning Shores of Our Souls. I'm also an intuitive coach who founded Ground One. And welcome to my story time. I wanted to connect and make connections here for those of us always wanting to expand our horizons. And I am so excited to introduce someone who makes these connections real every single day. Welcome, Ruthie Landis.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I'm so happy to be here.
Wonderful to have you. I'd like to introduce you to our audience a little more, and then we will launch into discussion.
Wait.
So, as an award-winning workshop designer, body-centered psychotherapist and coach, writer, teacher, actress, and director, boy, what an accomplished list. Ruthie Landis has been designing powerful and interactive group experiences for over 30 years. Among the many disciplines she practices, she is a master of the Enneagram and uses its wisdom in nearly every aspect of her creative, professional, and personal life. She works in constant collaboration with body, mind, heart, nature, intuition, and the creative force. Her intention is to endow all the world's people with what she calls a backpack for their life's journey. This backpack is plentiful, filled with a rainbow of resources to navigate and explore. So I want to say there's a vastness to Ruthie's body of work. And I'm so pleased to connect today with her because I'm always excited to meet a like-minded integrated spirit. I've called myself a Renaissance woman for years because I see layers and connections in everything, and so does Ruthie. And the connection through that runs through the thread through Ruthie's work is self-development through experiential learning. She incorporates mind, body, heart, and spirit into everything she touches, including her books. I just want to read one more thing before we launch into the discussion, and that is a review. She has many reviews of her books, and one is behind me. This is it's her first book, Ruthie,
That was my first book, yeah.
and her second book has launched, and we'll talk about that too. And this particular review is from a client who is a medical doctor. And I think has some creativity in them too,
Mhm.
but it's definitely a peer review. A huge fan and grateful student of Ruthie Landis, I ordered her new book the week it came out and started reading. 30 pages in, I realized how truly unique and special this read was. I grabbed a highlighter and started over, not wanting to miss any of Ruthie's pearls. I agree, many pearls in these books. The reviewer then goes on to say how great the audiobook was as an adjunct, and considering Ruthie's stage and directing experience, I would totally recommend it because it's probably so well done. The review goes on. For me, Acting Lessons for Living is that book, all caps. The book I have been wanting and waiting for that speaks directly into my life and what I need to learn and grow. It does not have a wasted sentence. I was hooked from the beginning as so much of Ruthie's teachings in the book resonated with me. Ruthie introduces the pause, which we will pause and talk about in the interview. She pause before entering, pause before exiting. This simple but profound act has helped connect me with my intent and helped me reduce my reactivity. Boy, we need that right now. I own many Enneagram books purchased with the hope that I would expand from reading them. None of them landed in the center of the bullseye like this book. Acting Lessons for Living is both a treatise on the subject and beautiful prose, because Ruthie puts story into everything she does and makes it so entertaining and it immerses the reader. That's me, Kathy, saying that. As Ruthie's words read and capture the way good literature does. It is concise, and of all the Enneagram books I've read, most easy to understand and apply. When I'm faced with the inevitable challenges in a lifetime, acting lessons for living will be where I return for insight, understanding, and self compassion. It will not see my bookcase. It will keep its permanent spot on my night table. Boy, that is a compliment. So, Ruthie, can you tell us a little bit more about how you use your books and how your books build on themselves with the individuals and groups that you teach and coach and
Yeah.
interact with?
Well, first, I just want to thank you for reading all that. You know, sometimes it's really, I'm trying to find the right word. It was really moving
Mm,
to me to hear uh, who I am becoming, or uh, that I can't always see myself. And it was very humbling and very moving to me. Sometimes I think, who is that person? I mean,
yeah,
who even wrote the three books that I've written? Who even wrote them?
I've
Like
been there.
sometimes, do you know that? Like you open it up and you go like, that's good. I who wrote that?
I think we have some help, so that's part of it.
Well, I do too.
The other
I do.
part of it is that I think that often because we're in our own bodies, we don't see the depth and the breadth of our work from
Mhm.
beginning to end like the public does, or even our friends. And our friends just think we do, right? I
Yeah,
don't mean we don't get compliments, but they're not going to sit there and go, wow.
yeah.
So it's my honor and pleasure to have read that.
Thank you, because it really was a mirror. And I guess if I were to say the thread for me is that I think that I was gifted, born with the capacity to be an illuminator, to bring light, and to see the unseen, to bring light into the places that are hidden and covert and shadowy, um, and to bring light and focus into it, and as well as to hold a kind of mirror up for ourselves that we each are each other, like that you are me and I am you, and so I think that's the main thread. um, I feel like been meditating on this a lot, and in acting lessons for living, and then the companion book, which is a guided journal of activities and journal prompts. um, what I really thought about is living a life that matters to us. And we see a lot now, Black Lives Matter, everyone's, life matters. And then how does our life matter? How do we matter? And with acting lessons for living, uh, I use my father, who was an actor. I, of course, was an actor too, and an actor, acting teacher, writer, director, um, and knew that that whole world is a perfect mirror for us as human actors, right? And that at the end of a play, you get to take a bow. And I really, the people that I work with and impact, I hope that they feel that because of our work, they too can feel they can take a bow for a well lived life, that they can look at their life and say, yeah, this was a well lived life. This was a life that mattered.
That's beautiful. And it's so important too to stop and smell our own roses,
Mhm.
to realize, oh wow, look what has happened in the past 5 years, and look how I sustained my life or how I progressed in my life.
Yeah, because we so often, do, and especially in us in our work of self-development, it's too easy not to celebrate and strengthen the strong parts of ourselves. It's too easy to see, oh, what's missing, what feels broken in me, all that. And I think I would rather look toward, what is already in me that I can strengthen uh, and keep rising, keep rising, but not look so much like when you said smell the roses of ourselves, but also look at, I've been climbing a mountain. I've been on my own hero's journey. And it's really easy for me to look down and go, oh, wait a minute, I have a long way up. But I also have climbed this far.
Right,
I'm here. I got here.
right, right.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautifully said. So this is your first book, and I loved it, Beyond the Book Club. And it says we are the books we must read.
Yeah.
And your what when did your last book come out, and did the workbook come out with it, or do they both have
Yeah.
workbooks?
Well, yeah. The acting lessons for
Acting
living.
lessons for
Yeah.
living. I
Came
call it
out.
acting lessons. That's why I didn't say the whole thing. I was like,
Yeah.
acting lessons.
Happiness for living. Play the scenes of your life with intention, presence, and pure potential. And I know, Kathy, you work with that all the time, bringing abundance and potential to us. Um, and so I did. That's my dad, by the way, on the cover, taking a bow um, in a play. And he earned the right to take a bow at the end of his life too, for a very well lived life. My Then right after it, so within 6 months after it, so that was published like a year and a half ago. Both of these, then this came out. Both of these books are on Kathy Murphy's pick list. I think April, actually,
Okay.
next month.
Everybody listen. April is the month.
April, April that it'll come out as a bonus. I think they're bonus picks. But let's go back to, can we go back to Beyond the Book Club a little bit?
Absolutely.
So
Whatever.
I want to say how that emerged.
Yes, please.
So how it emerged was, I think it was Michelle Obama made a speech very early on, maybe in January, and she said, if we want change, we have to be the change. We have to make things happen. So I thought, well, what do I need to do? So I have a colleague who was and is still a client of mine, but who I coordinated and did some workshops with, an amazing creative soul. And we decided, and so that was back then, that we were going to offer a series of 12 free once a month workshops for women called Reconnecting to the Woman Behind the Mother, a journey back to ourselves. And we did it pro bono. And once a month, we did these different topics, and it was all experiential learning, using creativity, using the body, using all this stuff, and nature and ceremony and ritual, all kinds of stuff. And it was such a hit. And people came and we're so grateful. And afterwards said to her, I think there's a book here. I think like this should be brought more into the world, right? And she got pregnant again, and so she wasn't going to do that book with me, even though we did all these little ritual and ceremonies. We were going to manifest this book, and I had in my mind immediately Beyond the Book Club. That was the name I came up with. So what is that, like many years ago? So fast forward to when my book was published, I think 3 years ago, and I decided the year before that I wanted to do another year, but I would do it by myself. And I did it in my home, actually, for women only. And I called it Beyond the Book Club. And so every month, people would come as if they were coming to a book club. And I hadn't written the book yet, but I would each month explore some topic. Like the first one is yes, no, and maybe decision making. Do I say yes too much? Do I say no too much? Do I say maybe too much? Do I do one thing and underdevelop the other thing? And so what, because I'm
Hopefully,
all
yeah.
about it, it
Yes.
it's so, are you a yes? You're a yes.
I'm a yes.
You're a yes. I know you're a yes for sure. So I using my theater background and all my workshops that I've done over the years, so many, I decided that I would develop a workshop for each of these topics once a month, like we had done before, but new content, and see what happens. And so we had a following of people would come, and we would have a wonderful little potluck. Uh, Mostly I made stuff, but people did bring stuff, and and then we would do the workshop. And out of that, I just saw these people just blossoming and just like, oh my goodness, like this is what I really want. I really want to dive deeper into myself. And not to say that going to another book club that's working with novels, of course, that's amazing. It's
Well,
not to discount that.
but a book club is more than a book. Even the strict, I don't know. There's probably some book club someplace where people look down their nose at people that don't stick to the program.
Yeah,
But by and large, it's always been a place where people, and especially women, can
yeah,
commune with each other.
right. Hmm.
And I think of in the 20th century, it sort of took the place of those quilting parties.
Yeah, I agree.
And so there's a lot more that happens in book clubs
Right,
than the book.
right.
And and yay. Um, but I think that what you did was a marvelous testing ground. It
Mhm.
was almost like, this is my hypothesis. Let's see if it works here. And then it's probably just expanding exponentially now with
Yeah. Well, so what I thought about though was, how sometimes, especially in our busy lives, we don't have time to read a whole novel before our next book club. So what I did was I decided there would be 12 topics,
I love
and
that.
they would all embody all these pieces from mind, body, heart, uh, the creative force, creativity, um, the nature bringing into it. And so all these, like, and the Enneagram, of course, eh, kind of embroidering. I love that you just used that, like quilting, like embroidering um, these topics for ourselves. So that's when I decided I would write a short essay on what we were going to be diving into. So if people didn't have a chance to read a whole book before their meeting, it would be a different kind of community. And so they would read the short thing, which is, they're about what, 5 pages, 6 pages long, but pithy, deep, lots in them. And then so then I decided that in the book, I would give a script, and the script would tell people in the book club, they would all play different roles in the book club. There's the person who's the music master who brings in music to play.
Ah,
And there's a person who is the facilitator, but they have a script of what to do, just like I had facilitated. And there'd be the prop master, because there's always props in the activities. And then the food master. And so everybody would have a role to play in creating this sort of community. And in doing so, kind of learning how to be with each other, because we start each of the months with sacred rules of engagement. So in other words, there's just rules. Look, at over the years, I've had so many clients who were parts of book clubs, and then they would come in and they would be upset, and they would be like, oh, this person said this and this person did that and this person did that, and instead of like, but what about the book, like, or what did you learn from the book, there would be these conflicts. So I decided to create a container, a safe container of rules that everybody would abide by, like no giving advice to each other. Think about maybe the advice you want to give is really for yourself. you know that's a good one.
Such an integrated approach. And I could talk about that a lot more, but I want to get to the rest of it. I'm wondering, all those things, they're parts of you, Ruthie, that you brought to the table. The integrative parts of this beyond the book club. I'll call it beyond the book club. And I'm wondering which came first for you. Was it acting or psychology or writing or healing, or did it all come at once? And if you would include a little bit about your father in that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, so that's such a great question, because in acting lessons for living, I sort of start with this premise that we're born like a soul seed.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're the seed, and
Mm-hmm.
it has like all this DNA and all of this potential in it. And so I would say that my soul seed came in with all this stuff already,
I
and
have a feeling.
yeah. So if I look back at myself, I really think that that little girl was already going to become uh, someone who wanted to pull all of these things together. All right. She didn't know it really, but she was already that. Then, in terms of my journey, I was 8 years old, and my father was an actor, but he didn't do that for a living because it was too hard at the time. Um, and so he and I had a father daughter team. And I was 8 years old, and we would go perform at clubs and stuff like that. And then before you knew it, I was like, I was started to be in professional theater, and then I won a scholarship at Northwestern, a full scholarship in theater. And but at the same time, I said, I don't want to just do theater. So I kind of was a double major, and they were trying to almost create the psychodrama thing for me. Is that true for you too? Are you
Well,
feeling
I
like?
knew I had to have a money making job,
Mhm.
but I wanted to continue that. I had a liberal arts
Yeah,
education for my
right.
bachelor's, and I wanted to, you call it a container. I wanted that container to continue, and I looked for jobs that I found the container in, where I wouldn't be bored, where I wouldn't be just doing
Right.
this, and this for the
Like
rest.
where your creative life was integrated with
Mhm.
your career. Well, I think I wasn't ever thinking I was going to be a therapist the way that I am. I think I just thought that they go hand in hand. Any thing about acting and theater and film and is story and is character
Story and
driven.
emotion too. I
Right.
mean,
So I was just like, well, I love psychology, right? So, but then I started to teach. I was asked to teach at Northwestern when I was 19 in a summer program there. And I started to teach, and that came very naturally to me too. And then I was directing a couple acting companies. And then before you know it, I was still in school, and I was doing my one woman show, Colette, at a
I did
prominent
know
theater.
that. You could
Yeah.
call me over. Do you
Look
know
at
what
this, Colette. Colette, someone just gave me this cup.
my we had short terms, 6-week terms, and I read all of Colette's books and all of Robbe-Grier's books,
You can't
compared them in English and French.
get out of town.
That's another connection.
Oh, that's such a one. Oh, when I read her, I thought, I thought, because I was born like a year after she died or something like that. And oh my God, when she was writing, I thought, she knows me. She knows me so well. So I for first, my professor created a 3-act play in which Sherry was the middle act. Her her early life was the first act, and the last was the last part of her life, were her
Oh,
memoir. You're
okay.
writing a memoir, so her memoir. And so then all of a sudden a theater said, will you make it into a one-woman show, and will you do it? So I was already like being launched out of there into that world, and I did teach, and then did on camera and voiceover and theater and directed and playwright, all those kinds of things for a good while, and was successful. And but always there was, like, especially in my acting classes, this thing about how to deal with performance anxiety, how to deal with the rejection of being an artist. And so I all of a
Feel
sudden
in your
said, oh, I
body.
have to
You feel
train in
in your
this.
body. You feel in
Yeah,
your
the
body.
body, all those things. And I said, oh, there's this thing called body-centered psychotherapy. And at the time, I went and did a little training in Rubenfeld Synergy. And then I departed, and then I did a 3-year training. And I didn't know that's what was going to happen. I thought I was just using it for working with the artistic community. And then all of a sudden I have this full practice.
That's the
And
way it happens, though.
yeah.
We're meant
And
to.
so I was guided, just like the alchemist, I was guided and into this. So when you say to me, what comes first, I guess the acting career was first, but it was always loaded with all of the self-development and psychological aspects. And now, I mean, I had to make a decision, and for the last 25 years I have been, in private practice, and it's
And
so
we're so
gratifying.
glad you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
But you talk about the soul coming in as a seed, and if you see a seed as a crystal,
Yes.
there is no linear, this is where it began and this is where it's just different sides of the crystal of a life.
Right.
And you've had a very full crystal.
Well, I don't know. In Acting Lessons for Living, where I talk about the hero's journey, based on Jung's idea, I talk about life as a spiral. And so I love the idea, crystals have that uh, makeup kind of a spiral. And life is a spiral. So, we think that we've finished working on something about ourselves, and then all of a sudden we go, oh my gosh, here I am
Here
again.
it is again.
But I'm not exactly where I was, because the spiral isn't a circle. It keeps moving. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I used to draw spirals, and I boxes and spirals. Those would be my doodles, and I'm a horrible artist. So I would think, why?
Okay, now just pause 1 second
Okay, I'm
here.
a
I will
wonderful
not
artist.
allow that to be spoken in my presence. I
I'm,
will not allow that
okay,
judge to be.
okay, thank you. Okay.
You are, of course you aren't a horrible artist. You're maybe you're more of a process artist. But your
Well,
whole
I'm incredibly creative, and I create in every single method and modality there is. And let's say I haven't gone there with painting yet. So,
I do want to tell you about something. Can I just do this? Give a plug
sure,
for some other people.
absolutely.
So there's two really amazing process art people that had a breakthrough for me, because I mean, I'm not a drawer, but I'm a collager, I'm a this, or I'm a that. You like, and
I'm a
and
photographer. I'm a
and
photographer. And
okay, so you're a photographer. But so her name is Michelle Cassou, and she wrote a book called Point Zero: Creativity Without Limits. And I took a couple weeks with her, and she broke through all of that inner critic, because she talks about these 3 dragons: the dragon of judgment/product, the dragon of meaning, and the dragon of control. And that was a breakthrough for me. And after that, I never did say I was a horrible artist anymore.
Good. Well, I'm glad you didn't, because you are not. I will do my best to say
Okay.
that about myself again.
So you were talking about that you spirals were something that you wanted to doodle, and such a mandala kind of a thing,
I
right?
didn't realize it until I began studying to be an intuitive,
Yeah.
what I'd been drawing. I'd been drawing the way my life was at a certain point in a box, and I love boxes, by the way.
Yes.
And then I was almost manifesting the way I wanted it to be and
Mm.
what I was becoming. And you have to do that through perspective.
Yeah.
So and experience gives us that. Sometimes it doesn't, but if you're really fortunate, you get that perspective and growth as you go along that spiral.
Oh, it's so interesting you bring up boxes too. Can I just riff on that for 1 second?
Absolutely. I'm having
Okay.
a great time.
All right. So, um, my friend Sherry said the other day, a quote from Anne Paget, that, characters start in a box and they either fight their way out of their box or they don't, in a novel or whatever. And I thought that was really interesting because in my workshops, like one of the things I do, especially with the Enneagram, is, you know, there are people that will, so the Enneagram is this ancient model, dates back, a couple thousand years of points of view. So it has the aspects of persona or personality in it, but it really is a path of self-mastery. And people will resist it and say, I don't want to be put in a box. So here's your box, right? I don't want to be put in a box.
I
And
did it myself.
and so did I. And so did I. When my friend first gave me the Enneagram, I went, oh, I'm gonna do that. But what it really is it's a map of self-mastery, and it's kind of identifying the box we've already put ourselves in. And nobody's saying that you have to stay in that box. I mean, and one of the activities that I do in my workshops with the Enneagram is I give people boxes and I say, okay, here's all these art supplies.
Oh, I
So
love
what
that.
box have you put yourself in? Like nobody put you in the box. You put yourself in the box. This is the car you decided to drive around in. And these are the belief systems associated with that box you put yourself in. So if you can't disidentify with the box until you identify the one you put yourself in.
I'm going to leave that right where it is, because I totally agree. And what a beautiful way to explain the connection between body and mind and spirit. And yeah, I,
Yeah, about the box. Like the box is full. It's full of possibilities. It's full of other choices. It's full of polarities and paradoxes. Um and so first in this activity you decorated who you think you are. And then you get to go and who would you like to become? And so you can go back to what you created and like cut the box up and open it up or
yeah,
change it or
fun
whatever.
to see in a workshop or
Yeah.
session what people do.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
Yeah.
so amazing.
And that is creativity and that is art. So you're absolutely
And
right.
that is art and that is you. That is you.
Thank you. It's definitely you. I love that you use the story to connect um, all the parts of the body, mind, and spirit too. And I do that too. And my coaching process, especially for book coaching, is called Step Into Your Story. But it's more than just about writing and art. It's about seeing life as a story, because life is story. Maybe the biggest story that we're ever going to be in, at least on earth. And I also love it. I love using story if a client is stuck in some way. Can you explain how the story we tell ourselves is the story we live? I'd love
Yeah.
to hear your explanation of
Well, in acting lessons for living, I think that initially that soul seed, gets cast in certain roles. That's where I weave in the Enneagram again. Persona really means mask, and personality comes from mask. That means what we believe about ourselves secretly, and our belief systems that we don't want the world to see, really. So we wear masks and we hide that. And really, I think so much the Enneagram is about, the masks of thinking, feeling, and behaving, that are really hiding something we don't want to show, and dodging around it. Um, but here's the thing, and that is, in Acting Lessons for Living, the last chapter is called The Rewrite. And so, I guess that's to answer your question, is that just as any writer has to write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. I remember when I was writing film scripts, one film script we wrote, I had a partner, and we did 14 drafts. I mean, 14 drafts of this film script. So boy, I got a taste of the rewrite. And so I guess I look at our lives as something that when we get enough perspective on it, we get a choice of rewriting it. And I'm not going to even talk about older clients because I work with young people too. And I mean, I have 10-year-olds and 13-year-olds that are amazing at seeing the story they're already telling about themselves and saying, well, you're telling the story about yourself, but you don't have to.
it. Mhm.
You don't have to only see it that way. You can recast yourself.
I have this story about a walk I took. I rarely took a walk with my son. He did not enjoy walking with his mother. And we're walking along, and I had had a day. And I was talking to him about my day, not in horrible, like dumping ways, but, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then I did this. And he said, wait, Mom, you've been about 9. How's that working for you? Out of the mouths of babes,
Yes.
they are so smart, these youngins coming in.
Oh,
So
yeah. And when I introduce them to the Enneagram, these young kids, holy moly, they get it because see, they haven't built up resistance to it,
yeah,
already.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and so they like, oh, and I think my friend so and so might be that number. And oh, I think my friend, and oh, I have a little bit of that too in me. And that's the beauty of the Enneagram. It's very dynamic. And really, I think the goal is to embrace all the 9 numbers in ourselves, fully embrace the wholeness of that and not over identify with one.
Woo.
But the kids get it, they get it like that.
They do. They do. So I want to make sure we get to the Enneagram, but I also want to say, how do stories lodge in our bodies? I know you can speak very
Yeah.
eloquently to that question.
Well, I won't say eloquently, but I can
I
say
will.
I can say
I've read your books,
honestly, I can speak honestly. So
honest.
I've done a whole lot of workshops called The Body Never Lies, and it really doesn't. And so I come from a belief that everything that's ever happened to us lives in every cell of our body, every cell. And so, if we can get ourselves in a place or position ourselves in a place of non judgmental, receptive listening, the body in every moment is telling us a story about ourselves. And we don't stop or pause to listen to that story. But when I am working with a client on what's going on in the body right now, uh, the truth that emerges is exquisite,
Yeah.
is the only word. I mean, sometimes painfully exquisite. So I was with a client who is struggling, and about purpose and what matters. And we just dropped into this person's body. And this person
Mm.
first felt, I mean, as you look at their body, you can see the first was this big sigh. So, like the breath, I'll always go big breath. So, when a truth is told, this big spontaneous breath comes. I'll just go big breath. And so, in this person's case, I said, well, what are the lungs saying in that big breath? And the lungs were saying, I breathe. I still can breathe. I'm
Mm.
here. I can breathe. So this person was feeling very hopeless and then got this message. And then the next was that this person's hands were like this. I feel energy. They said, if they had a voice, what would they say? I feel energy. I said, well, take the hands apart. Person took it apart. Do you feel the energy? No. Put them back together. I feel energy. So I feel energy when I'm connected. I feel energy when I'm connected to myself or others. I feel energy. And as long as I feel energy, I'm here. I have a purpose.
Yeah.
So just those are like examples.
It's a beautiful message too. It spoke to me
Mm.
because as you age and your purpose changes, I believe that you're definitely thinking this path needs to be shorter, and so therefore,
Mm.
is it the right path?
Mm.
Um, and when you said just the word client, I felt this rush. So I thank you. That was a beautiful message. Um,
Yeah, and that idea of as we age, we start to think about efficiency and we doubt where we're being led, you know. So I really agree with you. The aging process is challenging, and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I want to say to your audience, you know, you can answer me on Facebook at Ruthie Landis, or my professional page is Ruthie Energy, or just contact me through my website, ruthieenergy.com, RUTHIENERGY.com. And just you can email me if you're not asking anything today, or if you're watching this later or something like that. Please feel open to that.
Thank you. And I'll come through and see everything at the end if we miss anything.
I
Um,
do say that I just love talking to you. So, you know,
well, me too. We could do this all evening and
yeah.
probably will again. So I wanted to talk about the pause. Again, another connection because my mother, she was a teacher, not an actor, but she always told me to pause before I entered and exited a room. When I was young, I rolled my eyes. But as I've gotten older, I realize how it you you do get seen that way. And for somebody who was introverted, it was really quite important that somebody somewhere see me at some point so I could go on and do what I came here to do, you know? Um, but
So
he,
so can I ask you,
oh, you can ask me anything.
so in your pause, so I'm hearing that your mom, as you perceived it, uh, was saying pause before entering and pause before entering,
I think
so
he
that you
said
make
that.
so you make your entrance, so you're being seen. And I have a little bit different
Well,
meaning.
that's why I want to ask you about it because you, you discovered this, and I'll call it a phenomenon, when you began teaching and you were 19, like you told us. And I'd really love to hear your take on it. And I've read a little bit more about
Yeah,
it, but I want
yeah.
the audience to hear.
Well, my take on it is, so here, you know, I just go back to that little introverted girl because, it may not seem that I am, but I'm an introvert. Okay. Um,
I don't think many people would call me an introvert anymore.
no.
I am still.
Oh
I
yeah, of course we,
I
you
like
know,
my space, but
yeah, yeah. And my son, who is so smart, he recently had read something else about introversion and extroversion, and was talking a little bit about introverts being people that ruminate and think before they speak, and extroverts kind of just kind of blurt it out, just say whatever's on their mind. And so I mean, I'm grateful that I do think a lot. I don't have to think as much anymore because I just kind of let spirit come through and out of my mouth. But let me tell you about the pause for me. So you cannot play any scene unless you have an intention, unless you know what you want. In acting, they call that a spine, the spine of the character, what they think they want. Well, that's really true for all of us. You know, we're all human actors, and we can't manifest what we want unless we let it land, inside of us. So as I think I told you before we started that I always, before any kind of interview like this or whatever, I do a little ritual, and I ring a bell and I get still. And then in this case, I picked a rune from the Book of Runes. And so I'm also interested not just in what the egoic I thinks she wants, but also what my higher self wants for me as much. Because my egoic self, like I'll say to a client who's saying, but I wanted this and this didn't happen. And I said, well, who is the I that wanted it? You know, is it your big I, or is it, this little I that is very egoic, right? And so the pause for me is about landing and inviting the question, not what do I want other people's to do for me, or how I see a result. But in the pause, as Rumi says, in the pause, life begins. So in the pause, what I get in touch with is, so what gift do I want to give myself out of this moment that I'm walking through this door? And and as I was reading about your novel, you do talk about, you know, what you're moving away from and what you're moving toward. You say that in the description of your book.
it's very much about her growing into herself. This
Yeah,
novel.
right. And so when you are pausing, you're saying, okay, what am I leaving behind? And what am I moving into? What am I moving toward? And what gift do I want to manifest for myself? So if you talked about being seen or not seen, like, is the gift that I want to give to myself is that I see myself and I allow myself to be seen. I take the mask off, I take the
Absolutely.
walls down, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and as I leave and I exit, I really am entering. So I'm leaving something behind. Maybe there's some pieces I want to take with me in my backpack, and maybe it's some I want to leave back there. And then what am I heading toward? And can I be mindful of that? Because if I am intentional and clear in my entrance and my exit, the the universe will come in and support that for sure. So that's what I mean. It's not about I'm going to get attention or whatever. It's I'm making my entrance. It's really, and that song from, Send in the Clowns, making my entrance in my usual way. She wasn't really getting it.
No,
Yeah,
she wasn't, because we never make the same entrance twice.
right.
And we're different every single doorway that
Exactly.
we stand in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that pause is so important. And we don't, like in beautiful music, there are all these rests that are on your musical score. But in life, we're just like moving all the time. And the pauses are so rich because it just gives us that moment to get back in touch with what's going on in my body. And what am I aware of? Is there a message? And before I move into this next space, what do I want to bring with me into it?
Mhm. Beautifully said. So I want to get to the Enneagram because, believe it or not, we're almost at the top of the hour. Um,
This flew
um,
by.
so we can use me; it's absolutely fine. But I am thinking
Well,
about.
do you want me to use me? I'll use me.
Sure, sure, absolutely. Um, can you just explain a little bit
Hmm.
about how you use the Enneagram?
Yeah. So, as I said, it's sort of a map of self mastery. So, in the Enneagram, there's these 9 numbers. They're broken down into 3. I have a YouTube channel, Ruthie Landis YouTube. I have 62 videos, lots of them on the Enneagram. So, you can learn a lot about it. On my website, I have audio inner monologues of each of the numbers.
And
I
I'll
have
put when it's posted, I'll put the links below. So
Yeah, so people can get access to that. Um, anyway, so there's the body types, they call them, and their underlying emotion is anger, and they're about power, autonomy, and control. And it doesn't mean that we all aren't like that, but it is higher. It's what they default to thinking about. The 2, 3, and 4. And so, because you had 2 things come up and the 1 and the 3. So there are look-alike numbers behaviorally. And that's why no tests are perfect at all. So that you have to come to it yourself, as I had to. It took me 2 years actually for me to fully land in, okay, this is my dominant number. Okay.
that helps because I get a different number every time I take it.
Yeah.
Although
So I
I
always
have
also
the
tell
back of
people,
my mind. I do.
yeah, I tell people to take the test more like if you're 19 years old taking the test before you've done all the self-development that you've done, because the mind's tricky about the questions and stuff like that. But the question I would say to you, in terms of you know we want to get into the most primal motivation as opposed to the behaviors, because the behaviors can look alike in so many numbers. Okay. So the second group is the heart types. That's what I am, and I'm a 2. And what's beautiful about it is you have these wings. So as a 2, right next door, I've got my 3 and I got my 1. So they're on either side of me, and they're coming in with their ideas. We have this whole inner community, and my 1's and my 3's like that to my 2. Okay. And the heart types are kind of their shame, unworthiness. And of course, these are secrets. We don't want people to know them. So then we adapt certain strategies around it, right? And then the last group is the head types. And doesn't mean that everybody else isn't smart too, but it's like the 5, 6, and 7 are head types, and they're operating around fear and feeling safe, secure, comfortable, supportive. And like I say, think of it as we all do all of those things, but this is the default or the cream that rises to the top. So that's how you begin to discern, what is my motivation, right? So for me as a 2, the underlying secret is always a kind of slipping into unworthiness or value. Now, nobody knows that. You wouldn't be looking at me right now and go, oh, that girl, she really has no sense of worth, right?
No, but it's amazing how many people, if not all of us, have that
Lurkings.
force. And if we don't acknowledge it, it just
It drives us.
yeah. drives the bus.
Yeah, well, right. If what we don't acknowledge gets in the driver's seat, right? So for a two, they often call them the lover, the helper, the giver. And so what they strategize is so that I won't feel that sense of unworthiness. I'll be very valuable in terms of how I help and how I give. And you might have picked up a little bit of that by now. And but the traps in it is that I got to work on that unworthiness, and that I can't be externally referencing, and that I
Right.
need to reference from myself, and I
That's
need to love
so
for
tough
myself.
for anybody in the creative. It's tough for anybody,
Yeah.
especially tough for those of us in the creative world who I have to say I enjoy taking a curtsy or
Yeah.
bow.
Yeah.
And I like people going like this, and I like people saying good job or thank you so much. So how
Yeah, and
does
how we
one
see that that can become a drug, right? Because
oh
you can shoot up on it, a little bit, like, and
yeah,
then if that drug
plenty of
is
people that
withdrawn.
do. There are plenty of people that do. So how do we find the middle way? Is
Well,
it
I mean,
encouragement?
it's acknowledging, oh, there it is again. It's not about like saying I'll never feel unworthy or worthless again. I may wake up in the morning and, like Eckhart Tolle talked about, pain bodies, and wake up and go, I'm not feeling good about myself today, and I have no idea why. But it's like saying hello to it, greeting it, welcoming it in, and saying, okay, that's how you're feeling today. I'll be with you today with that. And not talking ourselves out of it, because that's just another form of repressing it and pushing it down. And so when you say, how do you use it? Well, it's I cannot tell you how I use it. I mean, I use it in corporations, I use it with couples, I use it with families, I use it in your own personal growth, because we like, so we're with somebody who's another number, and their sensibility is they're thinking about security and safety, and I'm thinking about worth, and we go and we collide, right? And so it's a language for families, for couples, that is unbelievable, because it shows us how the lens with which we are seeing a situation. And once you have that, it's like, well, of course I heard it that way,
Right, right,
because that's where I go.
right.
And you weren't saying that at all, but that's how I heard it.
Oh, absolutely. And well, wait, that's a whole nother conversation because I feel um, that the world the world's evolution goes in layers, and depending on which layer you're in is the way you're going to hear something. It's also why I'm so wed to the belief that we can't forget our history,
Mhm.
because we'll just recreate it again.
Spiral.
Yeah. Okay, that is the best explanation of the Enneagram I've heard. And I have to say, I only heard about it for the first time about 2 years ago, but I'm beginning to understand it now in such a better way. And you did it so clearly and succinctly. Thank you, Ruthie.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
thank you. I know we're at the end of our hour, and I just want to thank you for this. Was such a joy and a pleasure for me.
it was a joy and a pleasure for me. And I want to say that Ruthie has gifted us. If you want to still leave a comment or a question, or you'd like to send her or me a question, you will be put in the running for a free, complimentary 30-minute Enneagram consultation. Um, and I, I'm really excited about that for all of you. I always end with my teabag wisdom. And then I want you to tell all of us what is on the horizon for you. I'm very excited about this one. Let me read it. We are born wise we are born complete.
Mm.
Do you remember the answer to the first question I asked you? I love these yogi tea bags.
Yeah, and then it's a matter um of restoring our wholeness, because we start to believe how broken we are and life happens to us. And so if we are born wise, we want to restore our wholeness. Isn't that what it's all about?
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
So thank you again.
Thank you. Tell us where we can find you one more time, or if there's any event you would like people to know about.
So I do offer a free Sunday support group. A virtual support group. It's Sunday evenings, and it's a small little group, but we do very similar stuff that we do to, that I have activities and things like that, that people are welcome to. But RuthieEnergy.com. It is so full
Oh,
of so much stuff.
love
It's like that backpack. It's Mary Poppins, in a bag, lots of stuff.
Well, thank you again. It's my delight and privilege to have chatted with you today. And to those of you out there, you can join me every second Thursday here at my Facebook page, interviewing fascinating people and people who bring the world together and make it a more enriching place, like Ruthie. Um, Next month, Kaylee Mullis will take the lead and we'll be interviewing a sustainability expert.
Mm,
And for my third Thursday story hour over on my author Facebook page, I have already recorded this because she has a class Thursday evenings, but I'll be chatting with lifelong friend and renowned writer and Professor Catherine Hinkla from Hollins University. Some of you may have heard of Hollins. Um, and you can find all my story hours archived on my author page on Facebook, all my story times archived on Ground One Coaching LLC Facebook. Should you miss an episode, and there'll be this and others will be on my YouTube channel. And you can find out more about Ruthie and her work at RuthieEnergy.com. That's RuthieEnergy.com.
right.
And more about me and my work at shoresofourSouls.com and groundonecoaching.com. Looking forward to seeing you all next Thursday. Until then, this is Kathy Ramsperger from Shores of Our Souls, bidding you a good weekend and a great book to read. Thank you, Ruthie Landis.
Thank
Bye for
you.
now.
Thank you.